Hey, everybody.
All right.
Welcome to our live stream. October 14th. Where does the time go, John?
October the 14th. Yes, it's been a very fast year for me. I've certainly felt that things have gone past quickly.
Yes,
So here we are with another live
certainly.
stream. We didn't make it for the
Yeah.
first week of the month, but we are here now.
Yeah. And today, the big topic is modals.
Right. Right.
What do you think about modals, John? Are they easy, difficult, medium, doable, learnable? What do you think?
Well, we can get there. We can pick them up.
We can.
Um, it's a bit of a struggle, I think, for some people.
Yeah. Okay. Um, would you use the word real versus unreal? How would you describe the difference between a sentence with a modal and just a regular indicative sentence?
Okay, I think real and unreal covers quite a lot of it. I mean, there's a sense
Yeah.
that if you're talking about, you must do something, then you're not really doing it, but you should be. And again, if you should do something, you're not really doing it, but you should be. If you may
And
do
maybe you
something,
have to.
yeah. If you will do
Oh,
something, you're not doing it right now, but you're going to do it in the future. So, yes, in
right.
a
Yeah.
way, it talks about things that are not actually happening, but which we suppose are going to happen, or which follow a range of possibilities for coming to be real, as it were.
Right.
I've actually
Okay.
put them here. I think we're going to come to talk about this a little bit later in some more detail, but it's talking about these things that I've put up on here right now. Possibility, probability, permission, a whole bunch of things like that. And
Okay.
we'll come and look at that
Well,
in
how
more detail.
about let's go to slide 4, and I can show the difference. Okay, so let's just call it real and unreal.
Okay,
So let
yeah,
me
yeah.
just walk you through the different aspects we have in English. We've got simple continuous, perfect, and perfect continuous. I have some example sentences here in questions, negatives, and positives for all 4 aspects. So we'll start with the subject. My subject in my example sentences is Jake. All right. So, what do we do with a simple sentence? We're going to need to use the auxiliary verb to do. All right, so that'll come up here under our adverb and auxiliary verb, where does. And for the simple, our main verb needs to be in, we can call it the base form. You can call it whatever you want. What it is a verb with nothing on it, no S, no ED, no ING, and no to in front of it. So that's what the question looks like in the simple aspect. The continuous needs to have its verb in the present participle, the main verb. So if you see Ving in any grammar books, that's shorthand for present participle. And we're just going to show you that one. So for my example verb go, it's going to be going in every sentence form. Then I need to use a form of the verb to be as my auxiliary verb. Because my subject is third person singular, I need is in the present. So the question's going to look like so. Where is Jake going?
Uh-huh.
And it goes on for the rest of them. The perfect, I need to use a past participle. Again, VED is shorthand for past participle, not for simple past. There's a difference. So in my examples with go, the past participle is gone, and I need to have the verb to have as my auxiliary verb, agreeing with Jake. So it's going to be has. All right. Oops, I didn't highlight that. There we go. Now for the perfect continuous, it's just perfect and continuous. So again, your verb is going to be continuous, the final verb, and it needs to be preceded by been. So over here we've got been going. Some people might call been an auxiliary verb. Some people might include it with the main verb. It really doesn't matter. What matters is that's its position in the sentence. And we need, just like the perfect, form of the auxiliary verb you have in the correct form. So now we've got where has Jake been going. None of these sentences are really that good. That's why I've got this column extra here. You might need something. Where does Jake go on Fridays? Where is Jake going right now? So these are just the most basic structures that you need.
Right.
Let's have a look at the negative sentences. All of those are going to need an adverb. I'm going to use not. You could use other negative adverbs like never, but I've chosen to use the most simple, which is not. And instead of our auxiliary verb being in this column, we're going to move it over here. All right. So it's just going to be the same as the question form. Okay. We're just going to move it over there. Notice that I didn't highlight this one because it's weird. Okay. So now we've got the negatives. And we've also got the positives. All right. So that's what the structure looks like for all, well, the last three aspects. What happens with simple? Simple is so crazy. Okay. This one, do disappears. Okay. It's not there. What happens to do in, there's historical reasons. If anyone wants, I can refer you to some books to find out what happened to do. Where did it go? All right. But the fact of the matter is, it's not there. So when I have my main verb over here, I don't have this marker to tell me what's going on. So I need to copy it and stick it there. All right. So now you've got all four aspects. Okay. That is indicative. That's real, say maybe provable stuff. If we want to add, oh yeah, I don't have a go.
There you go.
What happened to go? Where did go go?
Jake does not go.
Yeah,
right.
Thank
So
you. Yes.
we've put that one in as well. We've got a complete set.
Okay. Now, what I want to do is transform all of these sentences so that my auxiliary verb is going to be a modal. Okay. So I'm going to take out all the auxiliary verbs.
I'll just let's make one little comment there, Veronica, that for anybody who's not clear about these are what we call primary auxiliaries. We've got do, be, and have being used as what are called primary auxiliary verbs. And the second group of auxiliary verbs is modals. And we're focusing mostly tonight on modals. And so this is how we're connecting, how the structure basically is the same sort of structure between these primary.
So, again, we're going to leave simple alone until the end because it's weird. But we can look at the continuous. So now I've taken out that auxiliary verb, but I still need be. Okay. So what I do is I take the indicative auxiliary verb, or as John said, the primary auxiliary verb be, and I need to use it in its most pure form, like I explained before. No S, no ED, no ING, and no to. So we just put that in here, okay? So we've got be, and now for my auxiliary verb, I'm just going to put in the modal of choice, and it could be any modal. It really doesn't matter. Okay, so we have something like that. The perfect is the same. I need have over here, okay, for all of them. And then I'm going to put in some modal in the auxiliary place. I could have should, must, or may. Okay, I'm using them at random because it really doesn't matter for this explanation. And again, with the perfect continuous, I have my have. It's going to go here. All right. And again, I will put in modals in their correct place. Another will. Oops. I don't think I've used can or could. Oh, I don't want
Well, can is one of the difficult ones because, well, you're going to move on to that, I think, aren't you? There are certain semantic restrictions, and can is quite often
that's
restricted
what,
from that point of view.
That's what we really need to talk about now, because everything I've got here, all 12 sentences, are possible. But there's a big difference between what's possible and what we use. For example, in your life, you might have many possibilities, but there's no way you're going to use every single one of them. Some just aren't logical. I have the possibility of going to Antarctica. I could save some money, get a plane ticket, but I'm not going to do that. I don't really like being cold. It's really far. I think it's probably really expensive. It's not a logical choice for me at this moment. And many of the example sentences that you can see here aren't really logical. Not to say that they can't be used, but depending on semantic restrictions, we're going to see when we can use them. All right? Okay, so that's the structure. Why don't we go down and talk about some of the things that these modals mean, John?
Okay,
so let's look at slide 5 then.
Oh, we're on slide 5. So the one that I showed at the beginning there, very briefly, where we're looking at the what I'm calling them modes, because they're modal verbs. I mean, mode isn't probably the first word that I'd have used if it weren't for the fact that we call them modal verbs, but they are expressing, for want of a better word, they're expressing modes. And the modes that we're looking at are things like possibility, like he may do it, probability, it
might rain.
Yes, it might would very often show a lesser degree of possibility or probability, but again, it depends on context. Permission, again, we use may for permission, you see, and can. Okay, yes, you may go.
All kinds of things,
We use different modals to cover this range of semantic content. Ability, again, can be used with can. Can covers a multitude of sins. We use it in...
we can use could if we want to talk about past ability. Right. When I was 5, I could read.
I could do, yes, yeah.
Yeah.
We get moral obligation, which is probably more like what you should do, and legal obligation, which is more like what you must do. Although it's, again, the boundaries are not set in stone here. It would depend on individual users, it would depend on situations and so on. You've got your intention. When we use will, they often say that will is the future tense in English, but of course it isn't. English doesn't have a future tense. It just has will to express an intention for the future or a prediction for the future. It'll rain tomorrow. A prediction. Mm.
What can we use will in the past?
Well, we can use will in the present perfect certainly to talk about things that will have happened by now. So things that
That's kind of
it's not
okay.
quite
Well, let's
past, but
look at that.
it's not quite past, but
It's always with a by, right? By next week, we'll have read 100 pages.
okay. Now that's a kind of
So that's a
past.
future
It's a kind of
result.
past in the future, so that by the time we reach that future point, the 100
This past
pages
stuff will be done. Yeah,
will already
yeah.
be done. Yeah, but by now. You're
By
meaning
now,
before the present time. It's not past tense, but we're talking about what somebody will have done, meaning we suppose, oh, Jack left work at 7 o'clock. He'll be home by now. We suppose, we imagine that he will be home by now. So that at the moment of speaking, we think that he's at home. So in that sense, it's referring to past time, but grammatically, it's present perfect. I'm trying to think if there's a context where we would use will for the past.
We're using the aspect of the present perfect in an unreal situation because it's also not a fact in an English grammar because the future hasn't happened yet. It's not provable.
Right.
Right? I tend to think of those aspects as almost provable. Like I'm going to have chicken for dinner. I can almost prove that because the chicken is on the counter.
Right.
And the recipe book and everything. Whereas, oh, I think I'll have chicken. That's very different. It's not provable. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think I'm going to have chicken. Is just a matter of opinion. But as Ray is saying in the chat here, thank you, Ray, for joining us once again, by the way, and being there in the chat for us. Will is a kind of prediction that an event will be completed. It's not talking about something that, and it's part of the essence of modals, really, that we talked about, that they are, in a certain sense, unreal. We were talking about what must have happened, what could have happened, what might have happened, and what will have happened is in the same ballpark. It's not the same as saying what has happened, what did happen.
Yeah.
It's always.
What do you think of this, John? Is there such a word as provable?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I guess so. Okay, provable and unprovable. Maybe there's no such word as unprovable. I don't know. Sounds funny. Do you get my sense there? What do you think? No, they don't like it. We got it now? Without the okay. Is there an E in that? Sorry, I'm a terrible speller.
In American English, I think there usually isn't, and in British English, I think there usually is. But it's becoming
Google says
very
there's not, so there you go.
You can have it either way.
What do you think of those two words? If something is provable,
yeah, or it is.
This is the problem: is that if there were perfect words to use to describe these, they'd have already been
used.
They would have already been made. So, we like to try to come up with established. Okay,
established facts.
Established fact.
Unprovable would be well, it's a difficult word for people, but I'm going to use the word putative, meaning it's something we can think of as maybe being a fact, or as having some possibility of being a fact. We might suppose that it's true. We might speculate that it's true. But yeah. It's not.
All right. So we've got hundreds of different things. one thing I like
Mm,
to encourage students to do is choose one of these. Okay. So, for example, let's just talk about obligation. Okay,
okay.
I'm going to just put that here for a second. Um, Choose one and see what modals work, because not every single modal works in every single situation.
Right, right.
So if we've got some kind of obligation happening, for example, does everybody know what laundry is? Laundry is when you wash, dry, and fold your clothes. Okay. Now, this is a chore, a task, a little job that everybody has to do. And I don't know too many people who like doing this. So we have different stages of emergency when it comes to your laundry. For me, for example, if the basket is full, I think that I should do laundry. Okay? If the basket is overflowing and there are clothes on the floor, now I'm going to use a semi-modal. I have to do laundry. If I go to put on a pair of socks and I don't have any left, oh my goodness, now it's critical. I must do laundry. Okay. And there really aren't, in this sense of obligation, there aren't any other modals that I would use. Right?
Right. Yeah, I should do it.
Do
I
you
have to
think
do
of
it.
that
I
in
must
those
do it.
levels?
When you're talking about yourself, that's probably it. It changes, of course, depending on the person. So if I'm talking about what you have to do, I can say you should do your laundry, you have to do your laundry, you must do your laundry, you will do your laundry. You will.
But
Okay.
yes, okay.
It can be used
Is
in
that
that sort of sense.
obligation
So
though?
it does
Or is that a
change.
command?
It's kind of
I don't know.
it's more like ordering people, right? Yes, a
Yeah,
fine
there's
line
no
there. Yeah.
written law about my laundry so far. I should write a law about my laundry because it's really a headache. But anyway,
Can I just slip in something again from Ray in the chat
yeah.
that I think is worth noticing? You get can, will, and may, and shall, and while they don't refer to something that's actually happened necessarily. I mean, if we say you can do something, it means that from now on you have permission to do it. It may also mean
Mm-hmm.
that you have the ability to do it and have actually done it in the past, but it's separated from a tangible, absolute reality by
Right,
the mere fact of
right,
being a modal. Whereas, it has more of reality in it than could, should, might, and would, which are
right,
all
right.
definitely on the hypothetical side, and they're all on the side of some sort of possibility, rather than
Mm,
they're more intangible and the word that Ray's used is a very good word, hypothetical. Yeah. Yeah.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay.
And
So,
Ray has also noticed you shall do your laundry as being another kind of obligation. You shall do it.
you
So,
shall,
or
you shall.
possibly used
Okay.
in as a form of obligation. I
Mm-hmm.
just also note that we haven't included in our list of modals certain constructions like have to, and we'll find a few others that come along like that are sometimes called semi-modals or something like that. Like
Right. Yeah. Let me just grab a quick thing from what we talked about before with that structure.
Uh-huh.
I'm just going to move this slightly for a moment, John,
Sure.
and put this in here.
Yeah.
The semi-modals structurally follow the same patterns as our indicative words. Okay, so the modals changed things a bit. The semi-modals, our semi-modal goes over here. Where does Jake have? And then what I'm going to need over here is some kind of infinitive to go. All right.
Right.
So that's how that one's going to work. We're going to use have as my, and so we call the semi-modal have to.
Yeah.
But it's actually have plus infinitive. Don't forget, you got to have that extra verb. And this is have to, meaning that there's an obligation from some regulation, maybe.
Yeah.
Where does Jake have to go to deliver his passport or something like that? Yeah. Okay, I will get rid of that.
Okay. Oh, no, leave it there just for a second because I want one or two little extra comments to make about it. One thing to note is that although it looks like have, and we're tempted to say have, when we see it in isolation, when it comes together, with the infinitive in that way, the V becomes F, so it's have to. It's not have to. Where does Jake have to go, and that sort of thing. The other thing,
in my dialect, it wouldn't even be to. It'd be have to. Have to.
Have to. Oh, have to go. Yes. Yeah. I think quite a lot of speakers.
And even becoming almost a word, a spoken word by itself. So, do you really have to go? Sorry, have to.
Have to, yes.
Have to.
You sort of,
and all English speakers will understand that is have to go. Have to.
Have to. They look. It's in your head. You sort of think of it as HAFTA. Have to.
Yeah. Have to. Exactly. Yeah.
Other thing that I wanted to say here is that yes, your explanation about how have to is used for some sort of external obligation. It comes out in things like Bob invited Mary to the cinema, and she can't go because she has to do her homework. He won't say that she must do her homework in this context because he actually doesn't really want her to do the homework. If he wants her, she must do her homework. Okay, that would be kind of obligation coming from the speaker agrees with the obligation. But if it's have to, it's it's just the way it is. I don't agree with it.
I think
it's just that's how it is.
We can connect what we could call external obligation and internal obligation. So, for example, with my examples down here about laundry, I would call that internal. This is how I'm making rules for myself. Should is just advice. Have to is getting pretty important and necessary. Must is a critical situation. When we change that to external obligation, what happens is we get something like, oh, John, I'm going to the moon. And you're going to give me some advice and say, you should take a camera. Don't know how good my pictures would be. And you're also going to tell me what NASA, you're going to say you. Sorry, not I. You should take a camera. NASA has a requirement. There's a regulation. You have to take a medical examination. Okay, you can't go to the moon without that. All right. And then we've got must. Here, for me, it would be you must wear a spacesuit. If you don't, you're going to die.
Right. Yeah.
I'm being a little dramatic here.
Right.
But that's kind of the levels, right?
Yeah.
Should, have to, must.
Yeah. Must is a heavier layer of obligation. This is no way out here. Yeah.
Yeah, no way out. And it will be religious.
Right. Yes.
So it's going to have this moral kind of tinge to it, as well as if you don't, you're going to die. Or if you don't, you're going to jail. Or if you don't, people are going to think you're a very terrible person.
Right. It's interesting that the Bible, for its religious commandments, the translation that they used was "you shall not kill." But it really is like "you must not," isn't it?
But that's written. This. That was written in
hundreds
the 1600s,
of years ago, yes.
Right? The St. James Bible version, translated. Just knowing the history of how the Bible was put together, I don't think we can use that equated into modern day.
Not so
really.
Much, no.
Not really.
Yeah,
different uses of the word. Yeah.
What you shall do and what you shall not do were much stronger even up until the 19th century than they are now.
Well, even shall, okay. And I've seen some students ask me that. Oh, isn't that just for first person, singular or plural?
Terrible.
Oh,
yes.
Boy, is that old.
Yes. But it's not even old. It just never actually really was.
Oh, it never even was.
Well, if you look in some 18th century grammars, they tried to say "I shall," "you will," "he will." But then if you look at an 18th century poet like William Blake, he says, in his poem Jerusalem, and did those feet in ancient time, he says, I will not cease from mental fight, nor shall my sword sleep in my hand. Sorry, pardon my terrible singing voice, but do you see what I'm saying?
Okay.
The other way round. I will not sleep, and my
teacher.
sword shall not. Okay, I will not cease, and my sword shall not sleep. The actual direct opposite of what this grammar book that was written around about the same sort of time was saying.
And he's a poet, so I'm sorry, but
he knows how to use language.
Take, the writers of the era, if they've made it through the test of time, to me they are more of an authority to go by than any grammar book. Because who knows who wrote the grammar book? Do you know how many different, crazy people writing grammar books?
Yeah, many of those people are not really remembered today with very much, if at all, they're not remembered. And if they are remembered, they're not remembered with a tremendous amount of affection, because they were trying to impose things on the English language that were never really there. Now, Ray has also suggested, I put it on the I put it on the screen here, that we could do a whole live stream on weak forms, and we certainly could. We certainly could do that. And he said something else that I'm going to put in here now. That the difference between must not and don't have to. If you could bring really back that that my modes, could you take out the little table and bring back the I can so we can see, I just
want to show.
No, it's okay. We can see them. We can see them. They're at the top of the screen here. So well, we'll just leave them there. They're okay there. So
all right. So this is very different.
Yeah.
He does not have to go is very different from he has to go. Sorry, this one here.
Yes, and well, the negatives are just as the person can change the whole thing depending on what person you use. So I'll bring these back down here. So that there is an important difference depending on whether we're talking in a positive or negative context. So we've got the negation of obligation, meaning like you must not, where your obligation is it's negative obligation. You're obliged not to do something. You must not do it, and you don't have to do it, which means there's an absence of obligation. It's not that you're prohibited, it's not that you're forbidden from doing it, but you simply, there's no obligation for you to do it. You don't have to do that. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm not saying don't do it. I'm saying it's just not necessary to do it. But you must not do that.
So this is really important, I think, with modals to remember. So going back to our initial chart where we had the different indicative aspects, pretty much I can't think of too many examples where the negative is not the opposite of the positive. That happens. Jake goes, Jake does not go. Those are always opposites. Also, past and present are equal. So every day he goes, yesterday he went. Modals don't work like that at all.
No, they're very idiosyncratic.
Sometimes it works, but that's just a coincidence. So can and can't are not opposites. Have to and don't have to are not opposites. And we don't have direct past present changes. Sometimes would is the past of will. Sometimes could is the past of can, but only sometimes. And for example, the past of must is had to.
Yeah,
so you know there's a whole can of worms there that
and again these are to a large extent they're for semantic reasons, because I mean, for example, the one you brought up last there, you can't oblige somebody to do something in the past. You can't say, you know, you are now at this moment I am obliging you to do that yesterday.
But you
Doesn't
know
make
what
sense.
you can
So we can't
do
say you
is
must did or something.
You can tell me advice that I should have taken.
Yes, that what you ought to have done, what you should have done, what you,
but not what I must have done.
You can't use must in that sense, because that's telling somebody right now what they have to do.
I say, you know, take a situation like obligation, write down some example sentences that are useful, and then find some texts that support your sentences. Where can you find these example sentences? Focus on that for a couple of days and then go to the next one. For example, then go to an offering and do the same thing.
Yeah.
What do you say we look at some examples from
just very quickly before we do? Ray offered another little useful suggestion there in the chat about how they looked on will and shall in the 18th century or 19th century, that I will and it shall was felt like obligation, whereas I shall and it will was felt as prediction. So it was never, even then, a 100% rule that you have to say I shall and it will. It's just that the two things were considered in those days to have a slightly different meaning.
Right. Okay.
Okay. Interesting point. Now, let's go.
We've got some realia to look at, different authors.
Where would you like to start?
I don't know. Let's start with Agatha Christie. What do you think?
Agatha Christie it is. Okay.
All right.
There we go.
Let me make this bigger for the viewers at home.
Yeah.
Okay. So I've just highlighted the different modals in here. So for those of you who don't know, Agatha Christie wrote a lot of detective books, mysteries, murders, and her sort of star detective that was in most of her books was a man named Hercule Poirot. He was from Belgium, and he was incredibly polite, almost too polite.
He was Belgian, so he spoke English with all the formality of a Belgian in those days, meaning that his English really comes across as almost over formal, doesn't it?
It really does, right. So I didn't include those parts because I didn't think it was normal English. But they're talking about the primary investigation to a murder, and he says, we elicited all the facts we could. What does could mean there, John?
I would
Is
class
that
it.
ability?
I would put it with. I mean, it seems fairly straightforwardly ability to me. Yes, yeah. That
Right.
all the
Okay.
facts
So
that we
we've
were
got that
able
one.
to. Yeah. So just using could there for ability, which is a fairly straightforward usage. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And then he goes on to this is actually Mrs. Havering speaking. Okay, so
Right.
she's a British woman, and she's telling us how things came to be. She's retelling the story,
Right.
and she wants to talk to some of them and says, I can't believe that there was anything wrong with this woman. She
Yeah.
was such a nice, quiet woman. What is that? I can't believe.
Well, does believe come under the category of things that we feel ability to do? I don't have the ability to believe it. It doesn't quite, does it? It doesn't. It's not as straightforward as saying
Not
all
really.
the facts
No.
we could. Shows our ability to find those facts, but I can't believe it. It's
Yeah.
it's something
It's
more
kind of
connected
weird.
with like supposition or I really don't suppose that it's possible. I can't believe it. It's sort of negative supposition
Can we
rather
call
than
this a
ability.
set phrase? I mean, nobody says anything else. Like when you want to say that, you say, I can't believe it, right?
Right, right.
And it's really something I probably say. I don't know. I'm gonna guess here and say I probably say that 3 times a week.
Right.
I would think super frequent, really, really frequent. It's not that my life is so filled with unbelievable events. It's just so common.
Right.
Yeah. What's Ray got to say about I can't believe it?
He's more on the side of it being a present inability. I kind of don't entirely disagree. I mean, to an extent, it's talking
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
I'm not able to believe that, but it's not ability in the same way as being able to swim or something like that.
No.
It's
kind of an odd one.
I think it does involve ability in a certain sense, but not the same kind of ability that we're talking about, like if we can juggle 3 balls at once or if we can swim.
Right.
It's more
Okay.
like
I'm gonna move on here
Sure.
because we're running late already. This is the thing with modals, John and I. For those of you at home, just so you know, we talked about this earlier in the week to see what we could do for the live stream, and we must have spoken for over 2 hours just talking about modals. Didn't we, John? We must have spoken.
We must have done that. Yes.
For over 2 hours.
Right.
So anyways, yeah. Sorry, folks, if this goes on long, but there's just more to talk about modals than you could believe. Could not have committed. There's one, and I'm just going to highlight it for a minute. And must have Oh, no, that's not the same. Okay. Could not have committed. This is a past speculation, but it has a degree of certainty. So when you use could, what would you say is your degree of certainty? If I say must, then I'm sure it happened.
She must not have done it. Well, no, I'm not sure, because must not is more of a supposition in a way, compared with she could not, meaning it was actually a physical impossibility. I mean, if you say, "Oh, you must have been at that conference because and it's a supposition, and we may not be 100% sure of it. But when we say,
I see a little name tag on your shirt, and I say,
right.
"Oh,
you got that
you
bag.
must have been at that," because I see the name tag. So there's a lot of present evidence
of a
that the speaker is looking at to make these make these deductions, right?
Right.
So you're being a bit of a detective.
Yep.
So that's the present perfect structure working its way in there. So you've got have and your past participle committed. Okay. We're still talking about.
Well, getting a little bit coming in here about that. And
yeah, I know.
I agree.
Yeah. Okay.
That there's an element of possibility going on there. Now, when we're talking about what must not have, you must not have been, for example, you were at the conference, but you must not have been listening because you don't seem to be aware of something that was said at the conference. But that's a supposition. The person may in fact have been listening but subsequently forgot or something like that. Whereas if you say you could not have been listening, it means there was some sort of physical, or in this case, she could not have committed the crime. It's a physical impossibility. She wasn't anywhere near.
And she gives the evidence. She says, because at the moment the shot was fired, Mrs. Havering was with her in the hallway. So it's impossible.
It's a physical impossibility.
She was the one who shot the gun. Right.
Yeah. So Ray is putting it like this.
Got that. And must have some connection. What do you think of that one, John?
Supposition.
Supposition in what way? A lot of our listeners won't know what supposition means.
Well, the speaker.
We're supposing.
The speaker supposes that there was some connection with the murder, because she suddenly took to her heels and ran away. She suddenly ran away.
Right. Okay, so that is I suppose, or supposition. All of you out there, I hope you've learned a new word. Here's another one. Why should she? Oh, I like this one. Why should she? What does that mean?
Why should she? Yes. Why?
Why didn't they say why did she?
Why did she? Yes.
Why did she suddenly run?
Right.
Take to her heels, folks, by the way, means run away.
Run away, yes. Yeah.
So why should she suddenly run?
Right. Right. So what?
Why are we using should and not did?
Right. So it emphasizes, it has a very, very similar meaning. Why did she and why should she? The outcome is the same thing. She did. But why, why did she is sort of like putting it like clearly that's what she did and why. Why should she? What motive could she have had for doing that? Which is, again, as I said, semantically so close to why did she? You do really wonder why we have the choice.
But there is a definite difference.
Yeah.
Interesting.
What motivation was there for her to do that? What was going on that made her do that?
Whereas why did she? Because she was scared. There's an answer.
Yeah.
For why did she run? Because she was scared. I can give you an answer right away.
Yeah.
Why should she?
Right.
We don't know.
And again, in the chat here, I'll just put it in very quickly from Ray on that one.
Let me just move this out of the way so that we can get a bit more room here. Oh, they don't want me to
It's
move
really
it up.
something along the lines of what obligation might there have been? What hypothetical, what possible obligation could there have been? So we're talking about obligation. I would add motivation there as well. Obligation or motivation.
Okay.
Had she for doing that?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yes, I think that's a sort of area that we're looking at there, where you've given us, or Agatha Christie has given us several examples
I didn't
of modals.
write it.
And we've got really quite a sophisticated challenge trying to figure out, well, what exactly is the semantic content? What do these things mean? And it's not necessarily a simple question, even for a native speaker, to answer.
No. Well, look at us.
Yeah.
We're doing our best, and trying to explain these things is really, really difficult. Okay, well, I think that's Agatha. Do we have time for one more, John?
Let's
or
do
what
one
do you
more.
think?
Okay. Ian McEwan?
Ian McEwan? All right,
Yeah.
let me just give you a quick background on this one. Okay, this book is called Solar.
Can you blow it up a bit?
Yeah, I'm going to get that a little bit bigger.
Maybe.
All right.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so let me just explain this a bit so that you get a sense of how these are being used. Michael is the main character here. He's despicable. Okay, he's horrible.
Okay.
But he knows he's horrible. Okay. So we're hoping he will grow to become a better person.
Okay.
He does blame himself a little bit. He makes a lot of excuses for himself, okay? But he knows that it's necessary for him. You see, I'm trying not to use modals. It's necessary for him to become a better person. Now, as you can see by the first sentence, his fifth marriage. I mean, how despicable is that? Sorry, but if you've been married 3 times, maybe it's time just to check it out for a few years before you jump in again. Anyways, Ian McEwan writes fantastic stories. His characters are always fascinating. So Michael's 5th marriage was disintegrating. His 5th marriage.
His 5th marriage, yeah. For the 5th time, he's managed to mess it up in a relationship.
And he admits to himself. Now, even though this is the narrator speaking, it's the narrator in Michael's mind. Okay, so Michael knows that he should have known how to behave.
Right.
Okay, he should have known how to take the long view, to look at things from a bigger distance than tomorrow. Right. And he should have known how to take the blame. All right, so this is past, okay? Advice, but it's much stronger than simple advice.
Yeah.
Should have known.
If we go back to that list that we had earlier, and which it's a little bit difficult, people can't see it from here, but there it is. I put it in at the bottom there for you. I'd be looking at things like moral obligation. He had a moral obligation to have behaved better. There was perhaps,
and we would say this quite often as well. You should have known better.
Yeah.
You should have known better.
And I think it does, to a large extent, come down to moral obligation.
Right. Okay. So he had it coming. For those of you not fluent in the English strange constructions, that means all the trouble that is in Michael's life now is his fault. He had it coming.
Yeah.
Okay, so his four previous wives were slightly interested in his life.
He deserves what's coming next. He had it coming.
He deserves his trouble.
He deserves, and something is going, he deserves some kind of punishment, really, for it.
Yes.
Even in his own mind, he thinks that.
So his 4 wives would have been happy. I'm just going to put in the word happy, exultant.
Yeah.
And hoped they would not be told. Okay. Right. So his 4 wives would have been happy that his 5th marriage was disintegrating. Okay.
Right.
If they knew, but they don't know. So would have been exultant. Is this a hidden conditional? Could you call it hidden? Do you know what I mean?
Yes, that's right. If they had known, they would have been very happy to hear about his troubles because they think that he deserves them. So it's really it's a sort of we're making a speculation. He's making a speculation. A speculation would be he's thinking about the probability, or he's guessing what the situation would be, and it's relating. Yes, it's a kind of conditional. If they had known about it, they would have been very happy. So he is making the speculation, or perhaps the supposition, that if they'd known about it, they would have been happy. Yeah. And Veronica, I've just remembered that we had a couple of questions as well. Right. What do you think we should do?
Well, you know what we can do, John? I think there's so much here that we're going to have to revisit this.
Yeah, probably. Yes,
really.
We could spend a long time going through these modals in this way.
And I think
for some people, it's useful to see native speakers going through it, and for others, I think it's useful for you to do it yourself. Get your own passage and do what we're doing.
I think what we can do is we'll put a note below the live stream when we're all finished there.
Yeah.
And I can post these somewhere, perhaps on Facebook or something.
Yeah.
These slides, and just have the students, if they wish, go through them and perhaps formulate some questions about the usages for our next live stream. How's that?
Yeah. It would be great if we could get you people, or some of you people, kind of actually looking at this stuff and making your own questions and saying, it seems to me that this is not quite the same as obligation, and then we can talk about it.
Yeah, we can have a talk about it. Yeah. So we could do that on Facebook. We can also do it on Quora.
Right.
We'll have lots of links for you at the bottom of this live stream.
Yeah. Ray's just kicked in with would have been is a kind of prediction about a hypothetical completed action. So the hypothetical is what we're saying. It's an if. It's a conditional. The action hasn't happened. They didn't know about it. But if they knew, they would be very happy. Or if they had known, they would have been very happy. Good.
All right.
Shall we quickly move on to the...
Let's go to slide 11. Well, I think we should leave it now. We're getting super late. Let's go to slide 11 and do our questions here.
Okay. We don't use will in the when and if clauses, so that, when it stops raining, we will... wait a minute. Oh, we don't say when it will stop raining, we'll go out. We say when it stops raining, we'll go out. And the same with if it stops raining, we'll go out. We don't say if it will stop raining. I think this is what the questioner is asking about. But what about though? And it is interesting that though doesn't actually come into that same category. So we're talking
Now,
about...
let me just put this up here and see what we can do with it, John. I'll put some color on it so that everybody can see it. There we go. Okay, so what do you think of that?
Well, yes, now here we're talking, the first one you're talking about a zero conditional, then you're talking about a first, what the so-called zero conditional. When water reaches 100 degrees, it boils. And there's the first conditional, so-called, if it rains, I will take a taxi.
So now what have we got here?
We're talking about...
We're going out anyway, though it will be rainy.
Yes, that's the correct thing. That what we are going to do, even though it will be rainy. Now, if it was we'd say even if it is rainy tomorrow, we're going out anyway, even if it is. And by the way, these all work a lot better with even thrown in there.
Yeah.
So
even though I'm going to put in even because it just sounds better.
The even just makes it a lot more likely that people.
And I'm going to take that out because it's not really necessary. Okay, so can that work?
Having the future there with though works in a way that it doesn't with when or if. And the second example does not work. We just wouldn't say, I wonder if it'll stop raining. We're going out anyway, even though it is rainy tomorrow. We just wouldn't say that. So I'm going to go with A being correct in both cases. In number 2 as well, though you will go to live, or even though you will go to live in a foreign country, I hope we'll keep in touch with each other. Good. But even though you go to live, I'm not sure. In both of these cases, I'm not exactly 100% convinced that it is wrong. However, it's just not what people are going to say these days. I think in the English of the 18th century, around then, though you be... or using a subjunctive or something like that. And so they might do it as a subjunctive, or they might do it as a present simple in that sort of situation. Though he, I said it as a subjunctive. Though he be the best in the world, I will not speak to him, or something like that. But we don't speak like that now. So I would say that B is...
I don't know if this is any use,
B is not really what we say these days in either case.
No. So, though you will go, even though you're going, right?
Even though you are going would work, yes, yeah. Yeah, we don't it doesn't necessarily have to be with. Even though you're going away, I hope we'll meet... I hope we'll keep in touch, or whatever it might be. Yeah. So yes.
Yeah, I wouldn't say will there. So no, I'm gonna just let's make that a little bit bigger here. Here I'm just gonna say no. Okay. I'm gonna put it in red. I don't think anyone would say that.
Even though you will go to live. I don't put it as much in red as this one. B.
Okay, so maybe not red. Let's put it in purple.
Okay, it's not a very common. It's not a very common usage.
Even though you go, no.
That's but B is even less likely.
Yeah. So this go is out. Sorry, that one can't be.
That one, I think we just, in modern English, we would not say at all. And this is taking us back to Veronica's point earlier on, that although structurally all of these exist within the grammar, there are semantic constraints.
Just something semantically impossible.
There are usage constraints. There are norms of the language, which mean that we don't exploit the whole range of grammatically possible constructions in the language.
But also, John, if you think about it, think of this as a simple present aspect. A simple present aspect gives us a sense of a routine, a habitual action.
Yeah.
You don't go to live in a foreign country habitually.
Right.
And if you do, then it has to be countries.
Right.
Even though you go to live in foreign countries every other year,
It's the
then it might work. But you can't have a one-time action in the simple present.
and there is a good example of Veronica searching desperately to. I mean, well, searching.
I was searching desperately.
Desperate is the
John.
wrong word. What I mean, I don't mean to say. I don't mean to imply that. I mean to imply that you are casting around, looking as hard as you can to try and find any possible context where we might just possibly use that construction.
And I can't come up with one. And my brain's next action is why? Why can't I say that?
Right.
And I found one. It's not a routine.
Good.
I can't do that.
You see, this is the way that people who are interested in how language works, this is the kind of thing they do. They don't just jump in and say, oh, that's wrong. They look, they think, is there even remotely possibly some context in which we could say this? And then they would ask, well, if not, why not? So if you just follow Veronica's mental processes in the way that she looks at grammar there and looks at the way that the language works, she's doing something that is sort of certainly highly recommendable. Now Ray is making a few comments again on 2B.
I'm just going to put it, just before we move on, I'm just going to put it into how it works for me. Even though you go to live in foreign countries every 3 years, I hope you'll remember me. It's an unlikely thing to. Sorry, it's something that I'm trying to put in at the same time, and it doesn't like us. Okay,
trying to do things together. Ray saying here that the problem with 2B is that in terms of we're talking about a scheduled future event, something that's kind of planned. Whereas what happens, we don't really have time to go into all of this, but what happens when we're talking about something that's I can't edit that for some reason.
I can.
It's saying I need to take Ray Lewis's name out there because it's interrupting the sentence, but I can't seem to do it. But yes, it could be talking about it as a matter of principle, even though even if, but you see, we'd use even if you do that, I hope we'll keep in touch. It's not a planned event, it's a potential event, even if you do that. But even though has a very different, it predicates something very different from if, even though we tend to think of them as similar in lots of ways. But I think we're going to have to move on and take a look at the next example.
Okay, so let's look at number 12.
Here we go.
Slide 12, I think.
Yeah, it's 12.
Is it possible to say, if you should not come, they will be angry? Well, first off, okay. Again, here's my mental process. Let me just show you how I'm going to do this. So, I've got 2 clauses. You've got a question mark there. So the first thing I want to do is change my word order in the question.
Okay. No, wait a minute. That question mark pertains to, is it possible to say? I think.
Oh.
So
okay.
the question is ending here. Sorry, there's a closing of a quotation mark missing there.
If you should not come, they will be angry. Can I use 2 modals in a conditional sentence? No. Can I? I don't think so. If you don't come to the meeting, they will be angry.
But you could say if they can't come to the meeting.
Okay, but there is a difference between can and will, okay,
There is, yeah.
and could in modals or in conditionals. Like you can use them, for example, I can't think of one.
I think
If I could fly, I would. Okay,
right.
so
It's
you
the
can
it's
use
the
that.
it's the putting the should together with will that you're not liking. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah.
You'd be happier to see if you should not come to the meeting, they would be angry. Would that
No,
please
I
you
don't
any
like the
better? Still
should.
don't
What
like
what
it
is
much,
if you
no.
should not come? If
And
you
then
should
we've
not.
got the second part of the question, which is should you not come, which is very old fashioned English.
Well, okay, but if you should not come, that we don't say that.
If you should not, if you should, in
If you
I
should
think it's.
choose to not come.
I did take a look at this earlier on, and I got a few examples in Engram, but mostly they were from the 19th century. It's not something that you're going to see very much in English
But
now.
okay, I think I know what the person's doing. I think I just thought of it. Okay. There's a thing in conditionals, okay? Can you come to slide 13 just for 2 seconds here, John? It'll be easier to explain this.
Right.
When you have your three so-called conditionals here, we have a thing in English called inversion.
Yeah.
So we can invert the order of one of these clauses to make it more emphatic, okay? So the past perfect is easy because it's just inverting the auxiliary verb. So I'm just going to take that out. I'm going to get rid of if, and I put it there. Had I studied, okay?
Yeah.
This is not a question. It's a emphatic form for the third conditional. Had I studied? For the second, it's kind of weird what you have to do. Here, the auxiliary verb you want to use is were. And then you need an infinitive. Okay, so again, you take out that and you do were I, and then put in your infinitive with the verb that you want there. Were I to win the lottery?
Yeah.
Again, not a question, just an emphatic form.
Right.
What happens with the first? Well, there's nothing there. What are we going to do?
This
is where we do should.
Should it have rained, or
should it rain? Should it rain?
I see where you're going with this.
I will take a taxi. I think that's what this person is doing.
Yes. Oh, yes, definitely. And these inverted constructions are old-fashioned and very formal. I think we need to make that point. We don't often hear people
We don't often use this. I say this, okay, the most frequently used, when I use this the most is when I want to be funny and sound old-fashioned or sound like our dearly departed queen. I do that quite often. Right. Had I studied, I would have passed. I just know I would have, darling. Okay, so when I'm trying to be overly dramatic and funny and make my family laugh, I use the inverted form. Okay.
Okay. So
let's go back up to slide 12 and see if we can fix this up then.
Well, I think we're going to have to wind things up, really, but
we are. But let's come up to slide 12 and see if we can fix this.
Slide 12. Okay.
So should you not come to the meeting, okay, they will be angry. Now you can say it, but that's in the inverted form, and it's very old-fashioned. Should you, sorry, I forgot the subject. Yeah. Should you not come to the meeting, they will be very angry. Yeah. Not if. So what the person needs to do is get rid of their if, I'd say.
So it works better as an inversion rather than using the if form. And what's interesting,
Right.
we have noticed constraints like that where the negative is not. So the positive, as Ray is saying in the chat here, the positive, if he should come, that works, but in the negative, it doesn't work. And so, yes, we are seeing.
And again, if he should come, that's fine, but again, really old-fashioned. Okay, and it does tell us, okay, John, you got your stuff all over the place here.
Sorry.
That does show us, though, where the should comes from. So if you remember, I said the third conditional, the auxiliary we need is had. The second conditional, the auxiliary we need is were, which we see in lots of other subjunctive ideas. And the first conditional, what we see is should, which is a hangover from a long time ago.
Right.
Where should was the first conditional. Okay. And that's why it sounds really old-fashioned in the emphatic forms.
Yeah.
Okay.
The whole thing, it's a rather clumsy. In modern English, we probably wouldn't say anything along that. We'd just say, if you don't come, okay, they'll be angry. Yeah. Well, so we don't really need the should, and we are unlikely to use it. I think we should say goodbye to these good people, don't you, Veronica? Or, well, have you got a last final comment?
No, I just think we should get going, and and that we should come back to this as well.
Right.
It's huge. Here's something interesting just for students to think about how much there is to say about modals. One of my colleagues in linguistics in university did her thesis on modals.
Right. You could write an entire dissertation on them.
So, yes, you can write a thesis on modals.
And we could probably keep talking until midnight, but we're not going to.
No, we're not going to, folks. So, see you next week. Bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.